On the minutes, did the staff review them before they made it into the packet?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
AI's getting
It's on? Okay, thank you. All right, I am going to call to order the meeting of the regular zoning administrator for the city of San Clemente. My name is Cecilia Gallardo Daly, and I am the zoning administrator. So the first item on the agenda is to receive and file the minutes of the zoning administrator meeting of May 19, 2022. So received and filed. The next item on the agenda is to receive and file the minutes of the zoning administrator special meeting held on May 24, 2022. So received and filed. And moving on to the next item on the agenda, it's oral and written communication. This is the time on the agenda where anyone may address the zoning administrator on an item that is not on the agenda. I think everyone's probably here for an item on the agenda, so seeing none, we will move on. It's time for our public hearings. Public hearing process includes a staff presentation, a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes, public testimony not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker, and then following closure of the public hearing, the zoning administrator will respond to any questions raised during public comment and discuss the issues and act upon the matter by motion. So again, time limitation is 10 minutes for applicants, 3 minutes per speaker. If there is anyone who would wish to speak on any of the public hearing items, you can fill out a speaker card, which are the blue cards right there. So the first item on the agenda is a special activities permit for 202 Avenida Cabrillo, the Cabrillo Playhouse, and we'll have our staff planner, David Carrillo, give us a presentation on this item.
Yeah, good afternoon. So the project before us is a special activities permit to allow a maximum of 15 outdoor musical performances between 5 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. At the Cabrillo Playhouse, historic property in downtown. It is in the mixed-use 3.1 zone and architectural overlay district. Surrounding land uses include single and multi-family residences, as well as a commercial plaza across the street from the Cabrillo Playhouse. The Cabrillo Playhouse offers year-round comedies, drama, and musical performances within their indoor theater, which has 66 seats, and the typical hours of operation range between noon and 9:30 p.m. In 2021, the city approved a temporary outdoor operating permit for similar performances, with the hours from 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Thursday through Saturday, and between 1:30 p.m. and 4 p.m. on Sundays. So the request is similar to what the city has approved in the past through the temporary outdoor operating permit. So again, the events would be for a maximum attendance of 44 guests at the Cabrillo Playhouse outdoor patio deck. The events consist of 2 speakers directed towards the audience and the subject building on site. It'll also include 2 lights directed towards the artist, and then access to indoor restrooms. And that was reviewed by the building official and determined that it was in compliance with the building code. So as part of the analysis of this type of request does require approval by the zoning administrator to allow 2 or more special activity days not to exceed 15 days per year. In reviewing parking, there is currently 1 parking space on site. However, we do have parking available in the vicinity in the form of public parking lots and street parking that has been supporting the business, the Playhouse. So in comparison to the normal operations, the outdoor events would host a maximum of 44 guests. Normally, the indoor theater hosts 66 guests. So the number of guests at site would be less than normally seen. As far as noise and light, staff did review that. The patio setting that's surrounded by landscaping and buildings helps mitigate the light and noise potential impacts. We did add conditions of approval, which require that the lights and speakers be directed away from adjoining residences as well. So per staff's analysis, we do find that the project meets required findings, given that the proposed use is permitted in the mixed-use 3.1 zoning district with approval of a special activities permit. The special activities contribute to the mix of neighborhood and community serving commercial uses and provide further opportunities for visitors to enjoy the performing arts outdoors. We did add conditions of approval again that require the applicant to direct speakers and light fixtures away from neighboring residences. There's also a condition of approval which requires the events terminate no later than 9:30 p.m. We also did have the Code Compliance Division and the Orange County Sheriff's Department review the requests, and both are in support, subject to conditions. And we did receive public comments that are all within attachment 4, and I can go ahead and read those after. That concludes my presentation. I do want to say that staff recommends that the zoning administrator determine the project is categorically exempt from CEQA and adopt the resolution ZA number 22-012 approving the special activities permit. And we do have the applicant available as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, I don't have any follow-up questions for staff, and we can read the public comments when I open up the public hearing.
Okay.
But I thought the staff report was very thorough and had a lot of detailed information in it, so thank you. So I'll now open it up to the applicant, if the applicant wishes to speak or make any comments.
Hi, my name is Michael Lopez, and I'm your artistic director at the Cabrillo Playhouse. It will be 8 years that I've been there this September. We started this outdoor theater because of COVID and in order to survive. And we had to come up with a lot of money to do it. Luckily, we had a donating angel that helped us, but we did put a lot of money in purchasing tables, tablecloths, chairs, lights, all of that towards this, not knowing how long COVID would continue. We had no idea if it would be successful, if people would want to come in. You know, they were required to, at the time, they were required to wear masks, and the tables were kept 6 feet apart. Performers were only one person on stage at a time to be in compliance just within our own safety and what we thought would be safe. And we started out loud and we realized, okay, we don't need microphones up here. We just need the music and for the audience to be able to hear. Luckily, because of the way the patio is set, it's pretty much keeps everything confined. We were then told that we could not have amplified sound. So we had to roll a piano out onto the patio, and it ended up costing us more because it cost us more to pay a accompanist than use musical tracks of a piano, and we can't control the loudness of the piano, or we can't control the loudness of our musical tracks. But it was very successful, and people were happy that they were able to come to a theater and feel safe. And just sit there for a little bit of entertainment when there was no entertainment, when all theaters were closed in Orange County, basically. Very few people were doing outdoor theater. Actually, a lot more were doing them before we got our permission to do ours. We don't have a lot planned this season because of being indoors. we can't use both the patio and the indoor theater at the same time. So for the month of July is all open, and we have 2 weekends of performances planned right now. One is a play called about Tiny Beautiful Things about an Ann Landers character. And then the next one is a musical review, 5 singers, 5 females that are best friends. And this is taking literature from the page that was turned into musicals. And so they're doing that music. Again, that will only be 2 performances of that. And the play will be 4 performances. We've already sold out 2 of those shows. Now, I have been advertising for the patio, knowing that if we were not allowed, that we would move inside. But I just thought we have to, the cast has to rehearse, we have to get posters made, all of that, so we have been advertising. But also knowing that if we have to go inside, we'll go inside. Other than that, I think that's all I really have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think at this time I'm going to open the public hearing. And David, if you'd like, we can take turns reading the public comments that were received.
I'm fine reading all of them.
Okay.
Not that much. The first one is from Debbie and TJ Orr. Thank you for providing the subject notice. Kindly accept the submission of our objections. There's 4 points. Number 1, we have owned and occupied our single-family residence at the address above since July 2009. Our property backs to the Cabrillo Playhouse. We have had no noise nuisance issues with the Playhouse indoor performances over the years. However, our property is situated within 50 linear feet of the proposed outdoor performance venue. Our enjoyment of our backyard on summer evenings, approximately 20 linear feet from the outdoor stage, was severely impacted last year by the first ever Playhouse outdoor performance, whether amplified or not. Also, as we have no AC and only open screened windows for cooling, the peace and quiet inside our home is also disturbed. We are senior citizens who retire early. 2, it was our understanding that the Playhouse only undertook these outdoor performances last year in response to the prohibited indoor performances during the COVID outbreak. We tried to be accommodating under the circumstances. Why are they now proposed to continue the Playhouse when the Playhouse has full use of their indoor theater, 50-seat theater? The public hearing is scheduled for 23rd June 2022. However, the Playhouse is already advertising and selling tickets for outdoor performances beginning 2 weeks later, July 7th, 2022. Is this fait accompli then? 4, if we may make the observation that the Playhouse's outdoor venue appears unsafe, a number of electrical extension cords appear to be employed rather than electrical code compliant hardwired connections. Our circuits overloaded. We are concerned about the risk of fire, especially given overgrown foliage and flammable decking materials. Thank you for your time and consideration. The next one is from John Traub. I'm writing in support of Cabrillo Playhouse's application to present outdoor shows on their property at 202 Avenida, Cabrillo, and San Clemente. The theater's intimate outdoor space was activated in October 2020 after health orders closed the indoor space and in order to provide a safer environment for audience members and artists to join together for live performances. It was an immediate hit, especially with the Cabrillo's older patrons who felt unsafe in an enclosed environment, but also needed a night out on the town and at the same time close to their homes. While I do not live in San Clemente, I travel there often to see shows. During my 2-day visits, I patronize hotels, Nomads or the Volare, eat and drink in downtown businesses, H.H. Cotton's, Avila's, Beachfire Grill, The Cellar, Jane's, Italian Cravings, Nomads, Active Culture, and shop at local stores. I love the energy of downtown San Clemente and believe outdoor shows at the Cabrillo Playhouse contribute to the area's vitality. Concerns about outdoor shows would most likely be based on noise and parking. Since outdoor shows only happen when the larger indoor space is not being used, there's never an increased demand for parking. and noise from the shows can barely be heard on the streets that border the property from shows that always end before 10 p.m. I hope you will grant a permit for the occasional outdoor shows at Cabrillo Playhouse so that I can continue to enjoy all that San Clemente seeks to offer. The next one from Holly Jones. I wanted to express my support of the Cabrillo Playhouse's request to obtain a permanent permit for their outdoor patio shows. I have attended several of these events over the past year, and I have found them to be both well-produced and a wonderful addition to the entertainment options in the San Clemente area. The patio shows, like the theater's indoor performances, operate within reasonable time frames, both in the evening, Fridays and Saturdays from 7:30 p.m. or Sundays from 2 to 4:30 p.m. Therefore, they do not function outside of sensible hours and should not be considered problematic to the local neighborhood. They add artistry and pleasure to the neighboring communities' offerings and are an asset to the San Clemente locale. I hope this letter will help support the Cabrillo Playhouse request for a permanent permit for their outdoor deck entertainments. And then lastly, from Marcella Jarvinen, I have been to many performances at the Cabrillo Playhouse over the past several years. Last year, my aunt, my son, and I bought season tickets, and we have already purchased season tickets for this year. The outdoor performances were especially a wonderful setting during the COVID panic years. I look forward to seeing more outdoor performances this year. Also, we drive all the way from Rancho Cucamonga. And then we did have an additional comment from TJ Orr that requested it be added to the record. Please add to the record and to the zoning administrator attention that a realtor has advised me that I would need to disclose the condition of exterior performances at an adjacent property. This will likely impact interest and pricing of a sale or even a lease.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
I'm sorry?
Does anyone else want to speak on this item?
You want to? You go first.
Go ahead and state your name for the record. Thank you.
It's Lee Tillis. I'm on the board of directors. Like Michael said, we started this last year during COVID. We were experimenting. Everybody was experimenting. We wanted to follow what the restaurants were doing. We saw they were outside. We have a nice patio. Let's give it a shot. So tables, chairs, we put it out to the public, and we had a fabulous response. Everybody liked being outside. Well, it turns out, I guess, they still like being outside because you see all the restaurants are still doing outside. They're going to do outside again. Some of our audience does not come back because there are a portion of them that are still not comfortable being inside. So those people would be much more comfortable being outside, which is another reason why we're still doing this. And I don't know. I'm thinking that, we culled through a lot of things and picked and chose, and we realized that we had a sound issue. We dealt with that. We realized we had tables. We dealt with that. So last year was kind of a learning curve, and I think we've got down, and we really would like to continue doing this and offering this to the public and the people that are members, which we consider as almost family members. So we'd like them to continue having them this option if they'd like to come. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Sandra, I'm the box office manager at the theater, and our patio has been used all along for people just to go out and enjoy the fresh air and so forth before the play. We serve a few refreshments, and at intermission they go back out of the patio and they can just talk with their friends and socialize and relax a little bit before the second half. So that's been ongoing. And when we began to use our patio for shows, as you've heard, because of COVID, it provided us the opportunity to do that. People really loved it. I remember one time when we first started, and we had some music out there, and some of us went out to the driveway to see if they could hear it. Others went down to the end of the street, and they couldn't hear it. So, as Lee said, we've adjusted to what we need to be so that we're not offensive with the sound. And, we've been here in San Clemente since 1953. We've been in the building that we have right now since 1966, and we've been doing consistently plays every season, every year since that, with the exception of 2020 and COVID. And so it's really a priceless little gem here in San Clemente. And we would keep expanding. We went from having 6 plays to a year to then having some programs in between, like music programs. We've had comedians, we've had flamenco dancers, and then the outside now provides us to expand into what we call our little garden cabaret. And it's a lovely, everyone just loves it. Everyone just loves it. And the Cabrillo Playhouse, especially Michael, has been absolutely dedicated to making sure that everything is safe, that everything is right on course, we have right on target. All of the things are adhered to that need to be adhered to, and so that we can not only entertain our guests, but also be good neighbors. So we hope that you approve this.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on this item? No? Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing. I don't think I have any follow-up questions for the applicant team or staff based on public comments. I have read through the staff report, the findings and the conditions of approval. I went out to the site. It is a lovely patio setting. I did consider Mr. and Mrs. Orr's comments. I honestly couldn't see how the small outdoor space would have an impact on their property on Avenida Serra. I also didn't observe any unsafe electrical equipment or any cords that were being utilized in an unsafe manner. And this special activities permit is limited to the performances that you'll be hosting this summer. So with that, I can make the findings for the special events permit. The patio setting does have some nice landscaping, and the building really does mitigate the noise between the patio and the adjacent residential. The project meets the required findings. It's a use that's allowed within the zone with the special activities permit. It would contribute to the mix of neighborhood and community serving commercial uses and provide additional opportunities for visitors to enjoy performing arts outdoors. There is a condition in the permit that requires that speakers and lights be directed away from neighboring properties, and that the amplified sound or outdoor events terminate no later than 9:30 p.m. There'll be no duplication of activities indoors or outdoors. While the outdoor activities are occurring, there will be indoor activities, so it's not going to have an impact on parking. And the Code Compliance Division, the Building Division, and the Orange County Sheriff's deputies have reviewed the request and are all in support. So with that, I will determine that the project is categorically exempt from the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act, pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15301, Class 1, Existing Facilities, and I approve Resolution ZA number 22-012, approving the Special Activities Permit 22-063, Garden Cabaret at Cabrillo Playhouse, subject to the conditions of approval. Thank you. You guys will set me to clear out.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next public hearing item on the agenda is 701 Avenida, Colombo. It's a minor exception permit for the Tetherton fence, and we'll have our staff planner Nancy Mitt give us a report on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. As you mentioned, my item is minor exception permit 22-046. It's a request to legalize an existing non-conforming overnight fence in the front yard and side yard setback areas. The property is located at 701 Avenida, Colombo in the residential low zoning district with the special residential 2 zoning overlay. The applicant and property owner, Kristen Tetherton, who's here today, submitted a minor exception permit application to legalize the overheight fence in response to a code violation received from the Code Compliance Division. And so she's here to speak on that as well, so we can speak on that after. So staff believes the project meets the required findings because it's consistent with the General Plan Land Use Policy LU-103 in unifying and enhancing the character of the neighborhood. It's consistent with General Plan Urban Design Policy UD-5.10 in keeping with the scale and massing that's compatible with its surroundings. Engineering staff visited the property to assess the impacts that the overheight fence may have on the line of sight. It was concluded that the overheight fence does not encroach into driver's line of sight, and future landscaping will be consistent with General Plan Urban Design Policy UD-5.21. The property owner is proposing all low-growing shrubs and plants and will be maintained to ensure that there will be no impacts on traffic and line of sight in the future. There was a public comment that was received. We can also discuss that after my presentation is complete. And so with that, staff welcomes comments and questions from the zoning administrator and ask that the zoning administrator consider approving minor exception permit 22-046, subject to the conditions of approval. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned with respect to the findings and general plan consistency that the proposed fence would unify and enhance the neighborhood. How do you get to that conclusion?
There are a few other properties in the surrounding neighborhood that also has overheight fences in the front yard setbacks, and it it stays consistent with what's already out there. They're not going over what's allowed, and they're keeping the colors and the materials consistent with what's there.
In the code, under fences, walls, and hedges, and this is Municipal Code Section 17.24.090, purpose and intent. It says the purpose and intent of this section is to establish standards for fences, walls, and hedges that limit their visual and traffic impacts, but allow for privacy and architectural interests afforded by such structures. It said, in portions of street, side yards, fences, walls, and hedges, a stricter height limit is provided to maintain an open street scene, preserve the visibility of primary structures, enhance neighborhood character, and provide unobstructed views of traffic to and from driveways. So there's no concern with views of traffic to and from driveways. Engineering has already reviewed that and determined that there are no impediments from the driveways, or visibility triangles are being maintained with that. But what about the open street scene? That's what I'm seeing here in these exhibits, and I've been to the site. That seems counter to what the code requires.
So the property is located kind of on a slope, so the property is kind of like on top of it's higher than, it's on a hill, so as you're driving by, the fence doesn't actually cover up all of the property. It only covers up a portion of it, so like up to the first floor, and that intent was to maintain the privacy for the side yard or the yard area. But it maintains the open street scene in that it doesn't, it's not, there isn't like a block wall that's covering up all of the property from the side yard, looking from the public right of way. So I think that's why it still maintains the open street scene.
Well, it can only be 6 feet in height, so it can't be any taller.
Right.
Maybe you could walk me through the findings and tell me how staff can make the findings for the permit.
Okay. Well, I mentioned that one of the findings was it's consistent with the general plan land use policy 1.003. It unifies and enhances the character of the neighborhood.
Well, let's go through the first finding. It says the requested minor exception will not interfere with the purpose of the zone or the standards of the zone in which the property is located.
I'm sorry, I can't. Let me see.
It's part of the resolution,
Okay.
so it's going to be attachment 1.
Section 3.
Section 3. The project maintains residential.
Yeah, under section 3, the minor exception permit finding. So the first one is A.
The requested minor exception will not interfere with the purpose of the zone or the standards of the zone in which the property is located. So the zoning ordinance allows for the fence to go up to 6 feet, and the fence does not exceed that 6 feet height. And in terms of the purpose of the zone or the standards of the zone, they're still meeting the code requirements for that 6 feet. So I think that in that sense, in that case, it does meet that particular finding.
Okay. And then the next finding is B, the neighboring properties will not be adversely affected as a result of the approval or conditional approval of the minor exception permit.
So if we're speaking in terms of traffic or line of sight issues, neighboring properties won't have any issues with that. A lot of the properties directly neighboring the subject property is also on top of a slope. So it really, in terms of the visual impacts, there are no visual impacts. There aren't any safety hazards with the height of the fence. So for this particular finding, because there aren't any health or safety hazards, there aren't any visual impacts, it does meet this particular finding.
Okay, and I think you might be going into C a little bit, which is the approval or conditional approval of the minor exception permit will not be detrimental to health, safety, or welfare of the general public.
Correct.
Okay. And then there are some supplemental findings that are required for fences within setbacks up to 6 feet in height. So they are, under D, the height of the fence, wall, or hedge will not be unsightly or incompatible with the character or uses in the neighborhood. If you could walk me through that finding.
So the applicant is, the fence that exists there is it's metal. I haven't been out to the site, but just from looking at Google Street View, there are other properties out there that utilizes several different types of materials. And so it doesn't go against what's out there. The color isn't completely off from the compatibility of what's seen out there. It's just like a dark gray metal tone. And so, just from my understanding, it doesn't steer away too far away from the compatibility of what's already out there.
Okay. And then the final supplemental finding is the height of the fence, wall, or hedge will not have negative visual impacts upon the street scene or obstruct views of traffic to and from the driveway. So we know about views of traffic to and from the driveways. What about will not have a negative visual impact upon the street scene?
The fence actually tapers down, along with the hill or the slope of the street. So it doesn't maintain a consistent height of the 6 feet all the way across the side yard setback. So it doesn't steer far away from the compatibility of the massing issues. It tries to stay within the height of the slope so that it maintains kind of a more pleasing visual impact as opposed to just a big blocky wall. And it does taper all the way down to about 5 feet going into the front yard setback. So it's not blocky, it's not massive, it just kind of goes with the flow of the street.
Okay. All right. I don't think I have any other questions of staff. Would the applicant like to address the zoning administrator on this item?
Well, we've been working on this fence for 2 years. So one of our neighbors who doesn't live on Colombo or Salvador put the notice into your, I guess, code department. So, and that just came to my attention today at 1 o'clock. So there wasn't really much that I could do to address it. But I can tell you that we've had multiple neighbors, multiple people come up to us and say how much they like our fence and what we're doing to our property. And I could have had all my neighbors that basically surround me here at this meeting today. And I didn't think it was necessary because I felt like what we were doing was not going to be against what the city wants. And I do have a neighbor here that's one of my immediate neighbors. We're not blocking the view of anyone. Salvador is an extremely busy street. There's a lot of foot traffic, a lot of bicycle traffic, a lot of traffic, a lot of people driving fast on it. And because we live on the corner, we see a lot of stuff going on. And we want more privacy. We can still see out above our fence, no problem. We want more privacy for people looking in because there is so much traffic on that street. So that was one of the issues of why we built this fence. And there were security issues as well because in the past there's been homeless people that trail along the back of our backyard fence into the canyon. So they've used that as a pathway. We've planted some plants that kind of stop that. But we were just wanted more security and privacy. And the person who wrote in the complaint today, it seems like they have more of an issue with the look of the fence from what I've read, because they want us to plant taller plants. We were going to he requested that we have trailing plants onto the wall, which we're planning to do. He doesn't understand we don't have plants there, and I'm not going to put landscaping until the fence is done. I mean, that's really the issue. And we haven't done anything since I got the notice in February. So that's kind of where we are at this point. And I can provide other neighbors that have no problem with our fence. I've had people all the way up on Salvador come down. The day that I was outside measuring, taking all these measurements, a lady from Salvador stops by and says, "Hey, I just love what you're doing." And she's not even an immediate neighbor. She's not within my 310 feet radius. So I'm like, well, thank you. So anyways, that's all I can tell you is that we've had multiple people come by that say how much they like what we're doing to our fence and the fence that we put in.
Thank you. Also, just I know that you're planning to include some planting between the wall that's behind the sidewalk and the fence.
Correct.
And you've provided some examples
Correct.
of that as part of your submittal. Okay. Thank you. Is there any, I'm going to open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Want to fill the form?
Yeah, you can do it after. You can go ahead and
Yeah.
make your comments now. Just
I'm
state
Dick-
your name for the
I'm
record.
Dick Vale, 703 Avenida, Colombo. I'm the next door neighbor. And I've watched this go up for 2 years now. I'd like to get it over with. Quite frankly. But we have no problems, and all the neighbors that I know around have no problems. I don't know where this guy is complaining. I don't know where he lives. But we have no problem. Okay?
All right, thank you. Yeah, just go ahead and fill out that card and turn it. Okay, is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? No? Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing. Okay. So I have been out to the property, and I've reviewed all of the materials that were submitted, read through the staff report. I have to be honest with you, I'm having trouble making the findings for the permit. The code is pretty clear that when it comes to side yards and front yards, fences, walls, and hedges have a stricter height limit in order to maintain an open street scene, and preserve the visibility of the primary structure. And also to not create a walled effect, to enhance neighborhood character, to provide visual interest. I'm not concerned about obstructing views of traffic at all. As the zoning administrator, I do review quite a number of minor exception permit applications for overheight fences within the front yard setback. And the standard that we try and maintain is an open street scene, something that is not going to completely wall off a structure from the street. I am concerned with the solid wall in such close proximity to the sidewalk. It does make that wall appear more oversized. And I am concerned that it could present a visually adverse impact on the street. Nancy, you mentioned in your staff report that you have, while you have not been out to the site, that you have information about other properties with fences and walls on the street that are at that height. I couldn't observe any either on Salvador or Colombo. I did observe one that had a slope up from Salvador, and then there was probably a 5 or 6 foot high masonry wall, but it was really only about 5 feet in length, so it was very limited. Fences should contribute to the visual character of a neighborhood and provide an open street scene. Without an open fence design, I'm concerned that this type of solid wall at the street at 6 feet in height would establish a negative visual precedent. As I mentioned, as the zoning administrator, we review these all the time. I am concerned, and my standard of review are the findings for the permit, and that's why I had Nancy walk me through the findings for the permit. And the idea of an open street scene and having a design that's not unsightly or incompatible with the character of the neighborhood is really the reason why we have supplemental findings for fences and hedges and walls that are overheight. I don't want to deny your minor exception permit. I'm wondering if there is an opportunity here to come up with an alternative design that might provide a little more openness, perhaps toward the top. And if you could create a more sort of superior landscape plan. Some of these seem to be very low growing. And
Well, I did that on, can I comment now?
of course,
Okay.
yes.
I did that on purpose
Okay.
because they were very concerned with the sight line of turning from Colombo to Salvador, the engineering department. They did not want anything high. So I was very conscious of having lower growing plants because they did not want anything tall. So that's why I said, basically about 3 feet or lower would be kind of like the plant height that would, it wouldn't impede anyone's view, because at 3 feet, when you're driving your car, that's not going to impede anyone's view. So I was trying to keep that for the engineering department, for that part of it. So that's why, I wasn't looking at planning anything taller than that, because that was one of the things I had to submit. And then with the fence height, I guess I'm a little concerned because our fence height varies in height, and I have one section that is right at 72 inches, which is 6 feet. And then all the other sections are not that high, so I'm not quite sure where the 72 inch, height comes from. So, because that's at the, the ground level of where the heights of the fence starts is where I measured. So, if, I'm not sure what height I need to be at, I guess, because we're, at 72 inches or lower, depending on the section.
Maybe staff can provide some examples of other minor exception permits for fences that are over height that have been approved.
Because I just, if it needs to be less than,
So I'm not saying that the overall height needs to come down.
okay.
What we've seen, and actually, could you bring up the zoning administrator meeting from, this will be a working meeting. Nobody minds. Let's see here. Let me try. Let's see here. Agendas. Okay, let me see here. Designs front courtyard.
Is it from our last meeting?
I don't know if it was, it might have been a few meetings ago. Okay, here's, actually, it is the meeting of April 7th. Probably the most recent one I remember. And this is limited to just the front yard, but they were proposing a,
What is this one?
no, oh yeah, Zions, yeah, that's it. You want to open that up? So I believe they were proposing a 6-foot high fence. It's just the top, the lower portion was 4 feet, and the top 2 was horizontal cables to provide transparency. So that's
I was trying to see if there was some visual.
in the staff report. In the staff report, if you go up,
Okay.
yeah, go up right there.
This one?
Yeah.
Is that good?
So, it's a combination of pilasters. They had a couple of gates that are opaque, so they're not transparent, but it was a combination of solid and open. So the height is still, what are they looking at?
It was at 6 feet
6 feet.
full height, but
Full
it was
height.
4 feet with the wooden and then 2 feet in the clear.
Yeah. So, that's just one example of a recent one.
Right, well, the problem is that I started with a metal fence, which isn't a very expensive fence. And I can't go and change the style of it by lowering it and adding cabling. We'll have to figure something out. So I'm not sure, but I guess I want direction from the city is like, what height can I have my fence at in all these step downs that would make it, an acceptable permit? That'd be one question. Or, I could plant taller plants in that area also to soften the fence as well. But I was trying to mitigate that because engineering didn't want taller plants. So,
Right, but you already have a 7-foot or a 6-foot high fence, so as long as you're not going over that height, right, on the Salvador side.
yeah, we don't have
Yeah.
anything over 72 inches. Everything's 72 inches or
Right.
shorter.
Yeah, in
Correct.
terms of, in terms of landscaping, so you're saying you don't want landscaping that is over 3 feet in height, but I'm talking about the Salvador side of the property.
Right, I was just doing it all the way down that side just for engineering because they're concerned about people coming out of Colombo and turning right on Salvador. So I could put taller plants, farther down that won't, obstruct views, but I was just trying to make it, so I was trying to be consistent all the way down Salvador, but we could plant taller plants on the, far end of the property on Salvador. There's no reason why I can't. I was just trying to make engineering happy. Because I want to try to mitigate this to get a permit, so I don't have to redo my whole fence.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And then, okay, so Nancy, let's talk about the engineering. Okay, so there is a condition in the permit that landscaping in the front 10 feet from the curb face be maintained so that it does not interfere with vehicle line of sight at the street intersection.
Yep.
Okay, so as long as it's, so what does that mean?
So engineering staff didn't specify the height of the landscaping that they would be satisfied with in keeping the impacts or line of sight issues at a minimum. He did just provide the 10, so any landscaping within the 10 feet from the curb face just be maintained so
Yeah.
that, you know, it's not,
So when turning around the corner, you can see.
Yeah.
it's not disorderly.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So-
it's 10 feet on the
On the south.
Colombo side and then 10 feet
Yeah.
on the, like that visibility triangle
Correct.
on the Salvador side. Okay,
And I was just trying to be consistent all the way down, just to make them happy.
yeah,
So-
no, I understand. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Let's add a condition that they revise their landscape plan to provide more enhanced landscaping along the Salvador side, consistent with any engineering requirements to help soften the visual appearance of the fence
Okay.
along that frontage.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Awesome, thank you.
All right.
That makes
All
it
right.
easier.
Okay. Okay.
I'm
So.
sorry you guys are having to wait through all the
Okay, so with that added condition, I can make the findings for the minor exception permit. And I will determine that the project is categorically exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15301, class 1 existing facilities. And, on the added condition about the landscaping, to be to the satisfaction of the city planner.
Okay.
So when you submit it, our city planner will look at it and make sure it takes care of what we need it to, okay?
No worries,
Okay,
thank you.
all right. I approve resolution ZA 22-011, approving minor exception permit 22-046, the Tetherton fence, subject to the revised conditions of approval, okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay. Okay, all right. The next public hearing item, it is a short-term apartment rental, the Bennett Star. And we will have Carla Morales, our staff planner, give us a staff report on this item.
All right, good afternoon. The item before you today is Bennett Star. This is a request to establish a short-term apartment rental, also known as a STAR, within an existing 3-unit multifamily building. The proposal would convert Unit A and Unit B into short-term rentals for overnight accommodations less than 30 days. Unit C would be occupied by a full-time on-site property manager. This property is located at 209 Avenida Rosa. The site is a 3,911 square foot lot with a 1,400 square foot multifamily structure that was built in 1974. The site is located within the residential medium zoning district and the coastal zone overlay. It's outside of the permitted zone for short-term lodging units. The site is developed with a 2-story, 3-unit apartment building. The property includes a carport with 4 stalls. 2 stalls are allocated to Unit A, 1 stall is allocated to Unit B, 1 stall is allocated to Unit C. Figure 1 on the staff report illustrates the existing site conditions from Avenida Rosa. The neighborhood currently contains a mixture of multifamily and single-family residences ranging in height from 1 to 2-story structures. The property owner and applicant, Jordan Bennett, is requesting a STAR permit to convert an existing 3-unit multifamily building into 2 short-term rental units, which would be Unit A and Unit B, for rentals less than 30 days, and a manager's unit, Unit C, to house a full-time on-site property manager. Unit A is a 2-story unit and contains 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and 2 private outdoor balconies. The applicant states the maximum occupancy for Unit A would be 10 occupants, which is consistent with the zoning code. Unit B is located on the upper floor, which is closest to Avenida Rosa, and contains 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a private patio. The applicant states that maximum occupancy would be 6, which is consistent with the zoning code. The manager's unit, Unit C, is a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom accessory dwelling unit. The unit will not be rented out short-term, as it will house the STAR's full-time on-site property manager. The property manager will be trained in the appropriate procedures to help manage the property. Staff supports the proposed request as the use meets the required findings, as provided in the attached resolution, Attachment 1, for STAR approval for the following reasons. The proposed use is consistent with the city's general plan, local coastal program, and land use plan because the proposed STAR units are near several of the city's main attractions. The proposed STAR units support the city's visitor-serving land use and development policies in that it would expand the city's inventory of overnight accommodations and convert a private residential development into a visitor serving commercial use. The site is suitable for the type and intensity of the use that is proposed because the property is located in a neighborhood zoned for short-term lodging units. The existing multifamily residence is consistent with the density of the RM zoning district. Unit C would be occupied by a full-time on-site property manager. The manager would be responsible for maintaining the premises and addressing any concerns raised by the short-term tenants or neighbors, such as, but not limited to, noise, parking, and trash concerns. A condition is included requiring the property manager to be adequately trained to address tenant issues. In attachment 2, the applicant provides a narrative letter summarizing the on-site property manager's qualifications and how the proposed STAR units would be managed to address issues should they arise, such as noise or parking. The property owner is a local resident with property management experience. It's also important to note that the applicant also has a STAR permit located at 119 East Avenida, Mariposa, which was issued in 2021. To date, there are no code compliance cases related to this STAR unit at this site. This is important because the STAR permit is owner-specific and it'll terminate with a change of ownership. The proposed use will not negatively impact surrounding land uses because the project site meets the location setback outlined in the zoning ordinance, and it will not create a concentration of short-term rentals in a given area. There's also a map illustrating the nearby STLUs and allowed STLU zones provided in attachment 3. The use also meets the minimum operating and development standards of subsections outlined in the zoning code. The applicant also provided a project narrative letter in attachment 2 and site plans and floor plans in attachment 4. The STAR qualifies for an STLU operating license pursuant to Chapter 3.24 and is required in condition to obtain the license pursuant to condition approval 1.8 prior to the use of the property for short-term lodging. So staff recommends that the zoning administrator determine that the project is categorically exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15301, Class 1, and adopt Resolution ZA 22-006 approving short-term apartment rental 22-045 Bennett Star, subject to the attached conditions of approval.
I can't comprehend 1/10 of what you've been talking about for the last 5 minutes. It's so fast. I'm the neighbor right behind. It's not, I can't hear.
Okay.
It's that, it goes so fast, and not being familiar with your codes and everything else. It's brutal. I'm the
Okay.
neighbor right behind you. You know, behind the building
Yeah,
there.
all right.
Right
This is a public hearing, so you can keep your comments to yourself until
Sure.
opening the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have a copy of the staff report?
Yes.
Okay, the information that she's providing is in this from staff. Okay, thank you, Carla. I don't think I have any other follow-up questions. I thought the report and the details were all very thorough. So let's go ahead and have the applicant address the zoning administrator on this item.
Okay, so I do that before hearing comments?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
I think Carla pretty much covered it, but what I will say is, yeah, we turned 119 East Mariposa into a short-term lodging unit at the end of 2021. We've got 4.9 stars, of the 16 stays that we've had so far. So ultimately, I think I would boil down the case to, I've got experience between the one we have at Mariposa. I have another one of these in Big We also do property management as a business. We manage about 70 properties for clients. So because of that, I'm aware of what it looks like to place good tenants, and to manage those appropriately. As mentioned, we will have staff. Not only have we prepped the tenant in Unit C, to be responsible for the building, but I also have a staff that helps me with tenant concerns and things as they come up. I think ultimately my interests are aligned with nearby homeowners because I don't want partiers, people destroying my units. I do a really good job of making them look really nice, and we put quality furniture and amenities in there that are durable and are going to last. So definitely my intention is not to be a nuisance. I think the beautiful thing is I found that typically when you have people coming to stay at these Airbnbs, this is usually people coming from out of town, they're renting a car, and oftentimes they're only bringing one car. So the nice thing is I think this actually could be much easier on parking than currently, because as now there's 4 spots there, and there's a 4-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 1-bedroom. So we literally have 7 bedrooms in this building. And I mean, the tenants we just had leave, the 4-bedroom unit that just moved out, were 4, young guys in their 20s with 4 cars, right? So I think a lot of the benefit of an Airbnb, I think, is actually going to alleviate some of the parking concerns, because it's highly unlikely we would ever have a guest coming from out of town with, 4 vehicles. We're probably looking at 1 or 2. There's also a really great online credibility system with Airbnb where the tenants, the guests rate the landlord and the landlord rates the guest. And anytime a guest doesn't have any ratings, we always ask them, hey, how many are in your party? What's your intention? And we make it very clear that there's no partying. We've got noise restrictions and things like that. I think that kind of the final thing I say, this is an area with a lot of multifamily. So as such, you do have already parking concerns, and I think that this is actually going to be in favor of probably having less cars, at the property rather than long-term tenants that would likely, be renting a unit like this. I think that, I talked about, the noise concern, the parking concern, and then I think as far as trash, we've already prepared that tenant in Unit C to be responsible, for taking those cans in and out. So I think that's all I have.
Okay. Just one question. So is 209 and 211 on the same parcel?
I think at one point in time,
Okay.
they probably were. Now they've
Now
been
they're
split.
it's separate ownership.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right
Now
now-
they look like mirror images
They
of
look
each other.
alike, but they're separate units,
Yes.
and they both have the
Separate
same type of
APNs.
units.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I don't think I have any follow-up questions. All right. At this time, I will open the public hearing. Those people wishing to speak on this item, who do we have?
Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Hi. Yes.
Please.
Okay. And then just go ahead and state your name for the record.
I'll come to the table.
Okay.
Thank you. I mean,
Yes.
this is a very fascinating process. So part of why I'm here is to learn the process.
Sure.
I am, my name is Linda Jund. I've got my
Okay,
thing there.
thank
But
you.
I'm the owner of a Ole Hansen house, which is directly across the street from your house. I bought the property 2 years ago, right at the start of COVID. And so my daughter and I share the bottom unit, the upstairs unit. We were hoping to be able to do a short-term rental, but when I inquired 2 years ago, David, actually the staff person that was here was working with me, looked into it and said that my unit was too close to some of these other existing ones, which is the 227 Avenida Rosa that you have listed in your proposal. I actually drove by there today to look at it, and it's in total disrepair. I don't even see how they rent that place out. But that one was supposedly grandfathered in. It was before the ordinance came in about having nothing within the 300. So I guess one of my questions and concern is how does it get maintained that this 227 can still do a short-term rental? At least your property is very well maintained. You're doing a lot of upgrades. I guess the one concern I have is I was told no, I couldn't because of somebody very close by because of COVID and limited staffing and a lot going on. I didn't pursue it, which is fine, but then here I get a proposal looking to do 2 across the street. So how can 2 across the street at the same address meet the same ordinance that says you have to be 300 feet apart? So that's my one concern. Is the other concern is the one unit A has occupancy for 10 people because it has 4 bedrooms. So my experience and what I've noticed in doing short-term rentals, not me myself, but I rent places, when I have a big family gathering or I have a group of friends, 10 bedrooms is what you're going to, or 10 people is what you're going to look at. I don't think you're going to have one family that comes with a bunch of kids. I'm concerned about the noise level and I'm concerned about the parking level because I just don't see how 2 parking spaces is going to matter. Now, I didn't know, I have not had any complaints about the people that just left, and if they had 4 parking spaces and somewhere in the street, maybe, I just know parking is always an issue all the time. So those would be my 2 main concerns is the 1 bedroom. I mean, if there's any stipulation in which your property manager can say it can only be 2 families, not 5 different couples that each come with a different car type of thing. So that's basically my 2 concerns. I for sure, if you're approved, could never get approval for my upstairs unit unless I go through this process and challenge it, which might be a possibility. I don't know, but I just appreciate the opportunity to express as a neighbor, because it is a beautiful neighborhood, and I have very expensive Ole Hansen house now that, taxes are really high, and having supplemental income would do we have an apartment at the top that was part of the historic, the way the house was built.
Are you Casa Rosa?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm Casa Rosa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful home.
So we've done a lot of work, and I do want to work on trying to do the Mills Act and try to get some property tax relief that way to help be able to afford the huge tax bill now. So thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Go ahead and, Carla, maybe you can talk to her after the hearing or follow up with her on her potentially being able to apply, for an STLU or a STAR. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And we love Mills Act applications, so.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, who else would like to speak? All right, go ahead and give us your name.
My name is Fred Semino. I live on, right behind you, at 218 Avenida, Santa Barbara.
Okay.
And we actually look right up to the 2 unit there. The one next door to me, Maureen Shea, you may have some information. She's
Yes.
our next door neighbor.
Okay.
We're right next to her. We have the only 2 single stories on the block for a while. There's an Ole Hansen and Art all the way down by Ola Vista. Anyway, I really have very little concerns about the entire project. The biggest ones I have, you nailed both of them. It was parking and the noise. Anything else is pretty much mitigated. We're in a bowl right there. We can sit out back when we're all fenced in and we have all of the, it's really wonderful. If we're just talking back and forth, you can hear it 4 doors down. It's that way over there. We're across the street, which is where she lives, across the street. And the Shays live right next door to us. If they're in their backyard, if he smoked, he'd light a cigarette and we can hear it. Over, and everything just bounces off the walls. You're 2 stories, 2.5, however you want to look. You're, kind of subterranean a little bit, and then up on top. It just bounces all of that. Everything echoes over there. So the sound is probably the biggest issue. I have no problem with parking in our area. I'm being selfish, but we have parking for like 6 just on my property. So we don't have it, but parking is always an issue there. Santa Barbara, Rosa, it's just a tough spot. But we knew it, we raised our hand coming in. And I'm a little concerned about short-term rentals. I've not been around them long enough or lived in an area. I've heard horror stories, but you have the background for it. So we're going to be banking heavily on you to be able to maintain this. You're in this area that you pay a fortune for, like you said, to live. The city is a marvelous city. It has everything going for it. And I have to say, 95% of the people are incredible. We've only been here about 6 years. And I wouldn't know where else I would ever want to live. So we're banking, I'm relying a whole bunch on you, but I have nothing else bad to say about it.
Because of stuff from Maureen.
Yes, we will read that into the record when we open.
Yeah, they have everything over
We're
there.
basically here as for proxy because shouldn't talk.
That's okay, you can talk.
My wife's talking, I'm leaving. Nothing but soul. No, this was on her behalf, and then, it's one, and she gets very, very concerned. She's got her hands all over the city. She, heavily in Casa Romantica, and et cetera, et cetera. She's very, very, just loves everybody around her. The entire city spends time, money, effort, everything. That's just the way they are. They become very, very close to us. And, but I really don't have a problem with it. Again, noise. I don't think the parking is the issue. Turnover with people. We're never going to get to know anybody. I have to tell you, that is one of the things I actually enjoyed. The kids that were there before, we had no problem. They'd be outside, they'd play a little music here and there, but for the most part, it's quiet for the high density and the number of units there are right around us on Rosa, our street, even up on Ola Vista, all this. Streets locked up at 9 o'clock. Nothing is going on. It's the quietest area I have ever been around. We've been in some real desolate areas that are noisier than this, so I'm very impressed. I really don't have a problem. I know Maureen did, but I think you guys have mitigated pretty much everything. I think she will be quite pleased, with that part of it. Your issue is a whole nother thing. That's a toughie.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak on this? Okay.
Can I speak to it real quick? Or no?
In a minute.
Okay.
Carla, why don't we read the correspondence that we received on this item?
Yes, so it's provided as attachment 6 in the staff report from Maureen Shea and the neighbor surrounding 209 Rosa. We would like to propose the following stipulations be included as part of the approval of the short-term rental permit 22-045 Bennett. Because these rules were recommended by Mr. Bennett, attachment 2 project narrative, we anticipate they will be approved by both Mr. Bennett and the City of San Clemente. Proposals. Amendments. 7.0 operational conditions of approval. We propose amending 7.20 no parties or events, including but not limited to weddings, bachelor or bachelorette parties, party conference, or any other similar event. Additions. Propose adding 7.23 no pets. Attachment 2 by Mr. Bennett states no pets without prior approval. We propose no pets. Pets have been left abandoned on balconies and cause extreme noise and disruption, not to mention cruelty to animals. Note, this occurred before Mr. Bennett owned the building. 7.24 no smoking or vaping, including balconies with signage on balconies. Attachment 2 by Mr. Bennett, no smoking. Neighbor less than 10 feet from balconies has COPD and is immune compromised. 7.25 noise and music, reasonable volume at all times, and no noise or music after 10 p.m. Attachment 2 by Mr. Bennett, no noise or music after 10 p.m. Property is located in a quiet residential neighborhood. 7.26 Unit C will not be rented as a short-term rental at any time. Attachment 2 by Mr. Bennett, Unit C will not be rented as a short-term rental at any time. 7.27 ensure all stipulations be agreed to prior to reservation confirmation by short-term renter and house rules displayed on mobile device/screen immediately following reservation confirmation to allow property manager to enforce any violations. Example attached. And the photo is on the next page of attachment 6 of the staff report.
Thank you. Is that all the public comments?
Those were all the public comments received today.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Mr. Bennett, did you want to respond to any of the public comments that were received today?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the beauty of the rating system is that, tenants, if there's complaints, right, we give that tenant a 1 or a 2-star review, it becomes very difficult for them to continue to use the Airbnb platform. So it's early on, I heard, horror stories of short-term rentals and people trashing homes and things like that. I haven't had that experience ever, thankfully. The funny thing is you could get a long-term renter who smokes 5 packs of cigarettes a day on the balcony and is a disaster, and you can't do anything about it. So is there always a risk with any tenancy that you get a bad tenant? That's always a risk. But like I said, because of the rating system and the rules that we lay out, The same, and I think the parking is addressed by that too, because one of the most common questions we get is what's the parking situation, and we're very clear there are 2 designated stalls. Outside of that, there is street parking, but good luck. And we try to make that clear, because the last thing we want to do is give someone the idea, oh yeah, street parking is easy, and then they come and they say, oh, we had 3 cars and we couldn't find parking, and now I get a bad review, which affects my future bookings, which nobody wants that because it's a revenue source. So we're very upfront, about the parking, and we've had people not book with us, right? Because in the Mariposa one we've got 1 spot, even though it's a 3-bedroom. So I think I don't think it's going to be a parking issue. The noise issue, we do everything possible within our own, within my control, to mitigate against that, and. We're clear on no partying. There's no smoking. The only time we've made an allowance for pets is on longer term bookings. If someone says, hey, we're doing a 30 or a 60 or a 90 day, kind of booking. But generally, I don't believe it's required by the city to not allow pets, because of course long term tenants can have pets too. But it's not in our interest, because we don't allow pets for short term stays. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, so you have agreed to parking per city regulation, no smoking, no storage outside of the confines of the unit, no noise or music after 10, no parties, no pets without previous approval, and no trash or debris to be left outside of the property. It looks like some of the conditions of approval address 1.1 addresses parking. 7.18 requires that you have a full-time property manager on site. That is going to help with any issues or concerns that the neighbors have. One of the requirements that will need to be fulfilled prior to operating is Mr. Bennett will be required to get a business license from the city, and as a condition of that business license, he will have to send out a notice to everyone within so many feet of his property that identifies that he's getting an STLU permit and who to contact for questions, comments, issues, complaints. So our expectation is that the contact person or your property, on-site property manager's information will be provided to the neighbors. So if they have an issue or a question or a concern, they can contact the on-site property manager. Okay, let's see. And there is also already a condition that does not allow parties or special events, and that's condition 7.20. So I have visited the site, read through the report, the conditions of approval. I'm very familiar with the short-term lodging unit ordinance and the requirements for STAR permits. I think the STAR permits are actually better than just a vacation rental, because you do have an on-site property manager 24/7 who will be there to ensure that the rental operates smoothly. The STAR does support the city's visitor-serving land use and development policies, and expands the city's inventory of overnight accommodations. It is located in a neighborhood zoned for short-term lodging units. As I mentioned, Unit C will be occupied by a full-time on-site property manager, and it doesn't contribute to an over-concentration of short-term apartment rentals or STLUs in the area, as it is 300 feet from the nearest vacation rental. So with that, I'll make the findings for the short-term apartment rental permit. Determine that the project is categorically exempt from the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15301, Class 1 existing facilities. And I adopt Resolution ZA 22-006, approving short-term apartment rental 22-045 Bennett Star, subject to the conditions of approval. All right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's not operated well. These people will let us know.
We have full faith in
Yeah.
From everywhere, huh?
We're easily bribed.
All right. So I have one more matter of business. On the previous item, the 701 Avenida Colombo minor exception permit for the Tetherton fence, I failed to open and close the public hearing. So I'm going to reopen the public hearing, and I'm going to read into the record the correspondence that we received from Chris Ahola regarding this project. I am writing regarding minor exception permit 22-046 for a fence at 701 Avenida Colombo. I appreciate the opportunity to share my concerns about its visual impact on the street in our neighborhood, which respectfully causes me to not be in favor of the exception being approved for these reasons. It is my understanding the intent of fence height codes in San Clemente includes ensuring fences contribute to the visual character of a neighborhood and provide an open street scene. However, the fence at 701 Avenida Colombo, because it's solid, unbroken, and continuous metal construction, its oversized height and close proximity to the sidewalk has a visually adverse impact on the street. The fence is not in character with the neighborhood, as there are no other properties with 6-foot high fences built at the edge of the property line adjacent to the sidewalk and street along Salvador or surrounding streets. If there were, this would create a very unattractive street scene. The fence at the property is constructed at a higher grade than the sidewalk, so the fence appears several feet higher than the 6-foot exception height being requested. Because of the solid metal composition of the fence running the length of the property, the additional height and massing has an adverse visual impact. The fence being so close to the sidewalk and street, there is no landscape buffer. Given the fence has already been constructed, I request that should the planning department decide to approve the exception, that at minimum they will require the property owner to plant landscaping of a sufficient height along the length of the fence to soften the current massing. If plant matter shielded the lower half of the metal fence, it would at least have the effect of minimizing the oversized height and soften the stark visual mass of the structure. And perhaps it could be requested that trailing plants be planted over the block wall below the fence to help soften the overall mass, which currently reads as about 9 to 10 feet from the sidewalk to the top of the fence. While the fence design and height might be appropriate in many locations with deeper setbacks, I am concerned that granting an exception here creates a precedence for other homeowners to build more similar overheight structures adjacent to the sidewalks and streets in our neighborhood, a neighborhood that is being beautified by property owners after many years of stagnation. I respectfully hope and ask that planning codes can be thoughtfully applied and upheld to ensure pleasing visual experience for all residents living in the area. Thank you to the planning department for hearing my concerns and finding a solution that ensures the fence in question has a positive as opposed to adverse visual impact on the street scene. I'm not able to attend the hearing at 3 p.m. due to my work schedule. As such, please note my concerns and objections in the file. Thank you. Sincerely, Chris Ahola. And I did receive this correspondence earlier today, so I read it and took it into consideration, even though it wasn't read into the record, for the purposes of making the findings for the permit. So with that, I will close the public hearing. And we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. New business, seeing none. We'll go to old business, seeing none. I will adjourn this meeting to the next regular meeting of the zoning administrator to be held at 3 p.m. on Thursday, July 21, 2022 at the Community Development Department First Floor Community Room located at 910 Calle Negocio, San Clemente, California.